Here's when I'm able to get in the London system. Want to go through this game and my thought process behind it. I'm around 1970 right now, trying to get back to 2000, eventually back to 2100. I go pawn to d4, they go pawn to d5, bishop to f4, bishop to f5. One of the London responses I hate playing against the most, I would say this version and probably bishop d6. I really don't like trading bishops off that much. They're probably one of my favorite pieces. But they go e6, and this is the last book move. I have about a 50% win rate in this open, 56% win rate in this opening, so I do pretty well. But here I go bishop to d3. They go knight here to knight b, no, just knight to d7, and I go knight to f3. So both of us play back-to-back inaccuracies. I'm sure you can see on the screen. Now, I did not take the bishop because if you are familiar with the London, there's a line, or basically not even a line. If I go here and they go bishop d6, it's actually, well, maybe not this specifically, but there's some line where bishop d6, I'm supposed to leave the bishop on f4 and just keep playing, and they take it, I take it, and it's actually good for white. So I kind of assumed it was the same for black, which I think I've also said in a video before, so I really should know better by now, but now I do. When they play this, I will take the bishop, and that's why I didn't, because I knew it was better if I let them take it, so I kind of assumed the same. However, different positions, different sides of the board, it's different outcomes. I go, but again, I go knight f3. They go bishop here to g4. I go pawn to h3, pawn to c3, and bishop to e7. No, e2. Now, bishop e2 is an inaccuracy. Honestly, I don't think I would have played queen to b3 just because I am attacked. I'm going to give up these double pawns, and I have to castle queenside. I don't want to bottleneck or restrain myself like that. I want to have both as options. So I go bishop e2, inaccuracy, but that's the reason why. So I can move my knight freely and potentially still castle on both sides of the board. I go pawn to g5, I go bishop here to h2, bishop to g6, and knight b to d2. And knight b to d2, another inaccuracy. My thought here was to just finish queenside development, but I see the c4 is a much better move. As it opens space, I can go knight to c3, which is probably a better square all in all. And they don't have a very strong pawn structure right now, so I probably should have attacked it. But I make the wrong move, knight b to d2, you live, you learn. They go bishop d6, I take. The reason I decided to take, now I could have let them, but there were two issues I was running in mentally with letting them do that. The first is that if I allowed them to capture it, I take with my knight, which one will remove a piece towards the center of the board, which is not ideal in this position, or just in any position in general. And two, if I took back with the rook, that also wouldn't be ideal, as I would again battle or restrain myself and I can only castle queenside since my rook would have moved. So if I take the bishop there on my terms, they take back with the pawn, which is the only piece protected it, and I go knight to b3. Knight to b3 was a move simply, well, I don't know. I think I was playing that move trying to go queen to d2. Oh yeah, queen to d2 so I can castle. That's what it was. I should have just went king side. They go queen to b6, bishop here to d3, offering a trade. Queen here to c2, inaccuracy, mistake, inaccuracy. A very bad early game, but I have a much better end game. As I don't think I mentioned my accuracy. I had an 87%, so I have a pretty good game after the beginning and middle. I had a great end. But they go e5. I go pawn to e4. I mess up there. They take, I take. They blunder here, but I miss it. So apparently by the computer, queen c2 is the best move. Why that is, I'm not 100% sure, but it is. However, I stopped one square short, going to e3. They push f4. I move my queen over. Now, if you're watching this video, hearing my rating and seeing all these inaccuracies and misses and mistakes, it is a very interesting look, I would say. I'm not a master, so I do mess up in the games, but I have it. As I mentioned, you'll see my skill level more in the end game, although I would like it to be in the beginning, but that's just between me and like a great player. I'm just not as consistent. But after h6, I queenside castle. They queenside castle. I go rook h to e1, knight to c6, and queen here to c4. Now queen to c4, once I played this, I was feeling pretty good about my position. I didn't feel there was a whole lot that they could do. They didn't have a lot of plans, so I like more my queen's place. They go king over. I go king over. And when you queenside castle, a lot of the time going to b1 is a very important move. Situation definitely determines a lot. There's a light square bishop in this specific position. Maybe not, as my pawns here are completely opened up to the open up the king. But they go rook here to c8. I go queen to e6, and this is when the game was over, because rook to c8 is a huge mistake. The reason it is as you see, there have both of these pieces undefended and have a backwards pawn on d6, which I should have highlighted earlier, has a weakness in their position. But they cannot defend, well, they can defend both, but momentarily. They go queen c7, and I wanted to say they can't defend both, which is not true, but I should have said they can't defend both for an extended period of time, because after dx e5, there's nothing they can really do. So if you see in the game, they take with the knight. I actually make the a bad move in this instance. I take the pawn with the queen. They take the queen, I take the queen. They do knight x f3 and gx f3. Now the reason I decided to take the pawn and not the knight, I did calculate it, is I just wanted the material. I'm a human player. The computer wanted a positional advantage. I don't even think you can win the pawn. If you do knight x e5, they could do dx e5 and you don't win the material. Now it must be in much better position than oh no, maybe you could. No, you can't, because the knight always protects it. But you have a great position after rook to d7 probably. But I'm a human player. I went for the material. That was a mistake, but I am still winning. So we go to the endgame up a pawn. Although it is double, and I've mentioned before in my videos you don't want double pawns. I've also talked about how they're different types, and this is actually the worst type, as they're double pawns with no pawn on the e or g pawn. I guess I'd call them a connector. Maybe there's a more official term, but that's how I look at it. Something that could bridge their gap. But the different thing here is, for them to move their pawns, they have to go g4. Like, the f pawn is locked. If they go h5, h4, it's a bit pointless. They want to go g4, and then whenever they go there, I could do fx g4, completely ridding myself of the double pawns. So being up, these double pawns are not that bad and actually pretty useful. They go rook c to d8. I trade rooks here. King here to c2, a very important move. The last thing you want to do is give up the pawn advantage you got by letting them go rook to d3. Now you could go knight to c1 if that's your goal, but king to c2 to get in towards the center is a much better idea. This is why I go there. They go rook here to d7, a mistake. Rook into e6, attacking the weakness on h6. Rook over to protect it. Knight into c5, and I'm rolling now. There's no way they can come back, as I just have, my pieces are much better, allowing me being up a pawn. Like, I'd probably win this if I didn't have the pawn here on f3. My pieces are just a lot better right now. They go king here to c7. I go knight to e4. Pawn here to a6 and knight into f6. Knight to f6 was a move. I want to reroute my knight to a better square. I want to go g4 to e5. I don't think I'd do that. I could definitely go g4, which is the wrong move. But my idea, I'm still winning, so I'm not too mad at it. They go here, yeah, and a knight here to e5. Now I could have let the knight to f6, but I want to trade off the pieces. They do g4 though, which kind of threw me off. So I take the pawn, and it's important that you take with the f pawn versus the h pawn. If you take with the h pawn, they can push h4, and maybe you're able to stop it. I haven't calculated it. Maybe not. No, you probably could, because then you could go knight d3, h3, rook e1, I guess, and then you could stop it. But it's not ideal. Well, you could just do it like this and not worry about it. They take the knight, I take, they take, I take, and now I'm up 2 pawns, and they go rook here to h2. So for a second, I forgot I was up 2 pawns, so I was actually kind of worried, like, oh man, I lost my advantage, because you can't tell, you can't protect both of these pawns here, which is why they go rook to h2. The reason you can't is because if you go, well, in the game, I go rook to e2, which is the best move. Rook g2, you can no longer protect the pawn, and I admit it, and I go king to d3, just try to win this one back. And I do end up getting up 2 pawns no matter what. At the end of the day, I should say. But I go back king to e2, and we're both low on time at this point, so both of us are kind of scrambling. And I'm trying to figure out how I can convert this. And I'm just going back and forth and back and forth. And eventually, towards the end, I find a hole. And this is probably I'm actually so good because I played the end game, as I mentioned pretty well. Offer the rook trade. They decline it. I give a check. Rook over, take the pawn. Now, I was trying to think of a plan like in seconds, which is kind of the issue. And the issue for them too, defending. So good job for them not crumbling, but eventually I get them. The rook to f5, pawn up, and then pawn to c4, which is the last move of the game before they lose on time. But I finally figured out the winning pattern. There's no way to win this game or defend this game anymore. Once I take the, so they do rook xb2, rook xb4, king xb, or no, rook xb2, rook xb5, rook xb5, cxb5, king xb5, king d4 or f4. They just can't stop the f pawn from promoting. So I can get rid of a pawn. I can lose another pawn, and 2 pawns for 1 pawn, and it doesn't matter just because this f pawn is completely unopposed. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy it and have a good one.